paying like I'm the lead while you cast me as an extra, the show is over.
I kept count. 31 consecutive days without any physical contact from my wife. Not a single touch. It started with what Rachel called a serious discussion we need to have. We were positioned on opposite ends of our sofa in our downtown apartment, and she wore that expression that told me she'd been rehearsing this speech for days. I need to establish a boundary, she announced, using that therapeutic vocabulary she'd absorbed from somewhere. I don't want you touching me unless I'm the one who initiates the contact. I need room to feel like myself again. I sat there trying to process her words. Room to feel like herself? We'd been married 5 years, together for 7 total. When exactly did my touch transform into something she required protection from? All right, I responded, because what alternative did I have, if that's what you need? The relief on her face was immediate and obvious, like she'd genuinely worried I'd put up resistance or refuse outright. Like requesting that your husband become a stranger in his own marriage was a reasonable boundary I might actually fight against. That marked day 1. By the 3rd day, I was already struggling with the adjustment. We were watching something on television, some series we'd been following together, and I reached for her hand without conscious thought. It was automatic, ingrained, the type of gesture that happens when you've shared years with someone. She pulled away like I'd scalded her with hot metal. "Michael, remember what we talked about?" she said, her voice patient but unyielding. "Right, sorry." She returned her attention to the screen, but I couldn't focus on anything anymore. I sat there studying the empty space between us on that couch and wondered when that space had transformed into an uncrossable canyon. Day 5 delivered another rejection. I attempted to hug her goodbye before heading out for my morning run. Her entire body went rigid in my arms, every muscle tensing. "I thought we had an understanding," she said. "I just wanted to say goodbye." "You can say goodbye with words." So I used words. "Goodbye, Rachel." I ran 8 miles that morning along the waterfront trail, trying to outrun the sensation that I was losing something fundamental I couldn't even name properly. By day 7, I noticed she was constantly engaged with her phone. Not merely checking messages, but genuinely absorbed in it. Scrolling endlessly, typing responses, smiling at the screen in ways she hadn't smiled in my direction for weeks. She'd occupy her end of the couch, and I'd sit on mine, and she was clearly somewhere else entirely. Somewhere that illuminated her face while I observed from across an ocean of cushions. That evening, a realization settled in my chest with the weight of a stone. I wasn't living with my wife anymore. I was living with a roommate who occasionally reminded me that we were technically still married. The days started blurring together after that point. Each one delivered a new small rejection, a fresh reminder of the rules she'd imposed. Day 12, I accidentally brushed past her in the kitchen and she actually flinched. Day 15, I sat too close to her at dinner, and she physically moved her chair away. Day 19, I tried to put my arm around her shoulders during a movie, and she stood up abruptly, claiming she suddenly needed the bathroom. By day 21, I stopped trying altogether, not consciously, not as some calculated strategy. I simply ran out of the energy it required to constantly monitor my every movement, to treat my own wife like she was constructed of glass that I might shatter with a simple touch. Day 28 arrived, and I marked it in my phone calendar. 1 month, 1 full month of living under her imposed rule. And in all that time, through all those days and nights, she hadn't initiated contact even once. Not a hug, not a kiss, not even a casual touch as she walked by me. Absolutely nothing. The rule, I realized with sudden clarity, was never actually about personal space. It was about deliberately creating distance, specifically and exclusively from me. Day 31 was a Wednesday morning. I woke up, and the very first thought that entered my consciousness was that it had been exactly 1 month since my wife had touched me. 1 month since she demonstrated any physical affection whatsoever. 1 month of sleeping next to someone who might as well have been residing on a different continent. I found her in the kitchen making coffee, staring at her phone, a small private smile playing at the corners of her mouth. Something about that smile, so intimate and pleased and directed at something that wasn't me, made everything crystallize with perfect clarity. "It's been a month," I said. She glanced up, confusion crossing her features. "A month of what?" "A month since you established your rule. You haven't initiated contact once." She waved her hand dismissively, like I was making too much of something trivial. "I've been busy. Don't manufacture drama where there isn't any." And there it was, the final piece clicking into its proper place. I wasn't manufacturing anything, it already was something. She just didn't want to acknowledge it. You're right, I said, setting down my coffee mug with more care than strictly necessary. This isn't drama, so let's stop pretending it is. I picked up my running shoes and walked out. I didn't slam the door or raise my voice or make any dramatic gestures. Just left, quietly controlled, like I was proving something to myself about the person I was going to be from this point forward. I ran for 3 hours that morning, along the bay, through side streets, past the park, and back again. My legs burned and my lungs screamed for relief. But I kept running because while I was moving, I was making a decision with every single step. When I finally returned home, she was positioned in exactly the same spot where I'd left her. Same location at the kitchen counter, still absorbed in her phone. She didn't ask where I'd been for 3 hours, didn't look concerned or curious or anything at all. Perfect. That afternoon, my friend Tyler called. We'd been meeting up for basketball on weekends, something I'd been skipping lately without explanation. Where have you been, man? You completely disappeared. Just dealing with some stuff at home. Everything okay with you and Rachel? I looked at the phone, considered how to answer that question honestly. Not sure there is a me and Rachel anymore. Silence on his end. Then, you want to grab a drink? Talk about it? We met at a bar near the park. Tyler listened while I explained the entire situation. The rule about touching, the 31 days, the growing distance, the constant phone usage, everything. He didn't interrupt once, just nodded occasionally and let me talk. So what are you going to do? He asked when I'd finished. I'm done trying, done being the only person who actually wants this marriage. That's fair, man, that's completely fair. It felt genuinely good to say it out loud to someone who wasn't her, to have another person validate that I wasn't crazy or unreasonable for feeling betrayed by what she'd done to us. You deserve better than that, Tyler said, raising his glass toward me. Here's to knowing your worth. We clinked glasses and I felt something shift inside me. Not just internally, but in how I viewed the entire world. Like I'd spoken my truth and the universe had acknowledged it. That night, I started living differently. Not dramatically, not with announcements or declarations or confrontations. I just stopped operating like we were in an actual relationship and started living like what we actually were. Roommates with a shared lease and a complicated history. Monday arrived. Day 32. She got home from work and I was reading in the armchair, not the couch where we used to sit together. Hey, she said, dropping her bag by the door. How was your day? Fine. She waited there, clearly expecting me to ask about her day, to engage with her, to show interest, to play my usual role in our usual script. I turned the page of my book instead. That's it? Just fine? Yep. I could feel her staring at me, trying to decode what had changed, but I didn't look up from my book. I'd spent 31 days meticulously respecting her boundaries. Now, she could spend some time wondering where mine were located. Tuesday brought something interesting. I made dinner exclusively for myself. Just for myself. Grilled steak, roasted potatoes, green beans, exactly one portion. I plated it carefully, sat down at the table, and started eating. Rachel walked into the kitchen and stopped dead in her tracks. You're not making dinner for both of us, she said. Not a question, an observation. I figured you'd want to handle your own needs, I said between bites. Autonomy and all that. That's not what I meant when I said, wasn't it? I interrupted, meeting her eyes. She opened her mouth, closed it again, then grabbed a box of crackers from the pantry and retreated to the bedroom. I finished my meal in complete peace and cleaned only my dishes, leaving the rest of the kitchen exactly as it was. Wednesday evening, she suggested we watch our show together. The one we'd been following for weeks, the one that was supposed to be our shared thing. I sat in the armchair instead of joining her on the couch, phone in hand, only half watching the screen. You're all the way over there, she observed, a note of complaint in her voice. Respecting your space, I replied without looking at her. I didn't mean you had to sit across the room. I looked at her then, really looked at her. What did you mean, Rachel? Because I'm honestly not sure anymore. She didn't have an answer ready. She turned back to the television, but I noticed she kept glancing in my direction throughout the episode, like she was waiting for me to move closer, to return to our old patterns. I stayed exactly where I was. Thursday brought the first real test of my new approach. Her car wouldn't start, and she called me from the parking garage at her office building. Michael, I need a jump. Can you come help me? I'm in the middle of something right now. AAA is probably faster anyway. Silence on the other end of the line. Then, you're seriously not going to help me? I'm being consistent with your request for space. Physical tasks create closeness and closeness. I wouldn't want to violate your boundaries. You're being petty. I'm being respectful. There's a meaningful difference. She hung up on me. I sat there for a moment, looking at my phone, waiting to feel guilty about refusing to help. The guilt never materialized. Instead, I felt something much closer to clarity. Friday evening, she came home late. 9:30, which wasn't her usual pattern for a regular workday. I was already in bed reading when she walked into the bedroom. Girls' night ran late, she said, though I hadn't asked for an explanation. Okay. She stood there in the doorway, clearly waiting for more questions. Questions about where she'd been exactly, who she'd been with, why she hadn't sent a text. I gave her nothing except a casual goodnight and returned my attention to my book. Her frustration was visible, practically palpable in the air, but she couldn't articulate it. How could she? She'd constructed this wall between us, brick by careful brick. She didn't get to be upset now when I stopped attempting to climb over it. Saturday morning arrived with its own kind of revelation. Usually weekends meant breakfast together, planning our day, existing in each other's orbit even if we weren't touching. I made myself eggs and toast, ate at the counter, cleaned my dishes, and headed out for a run. All of this occurred before she'd even emerged from the bedroom. When I returned, she was standing in the kitchen looking genuinely lost. "What are your plans today?" she asked. "Why are you asking?" She fumbled for an answer. I thought maybe we could do something together." "Like what?" "I don't know, something. We used to do things together." "We used to do a lot of things," I said, grabbing a water bottle from the fridge. "All by design." I left her standing in that kitchen and spent the rest of the day at the park, reading on a bench, existing in my own space the way she'd been insisting she needed to exist in hers. Sunday, she suggested dinner at our favorite restaurant downtown, the place where we'd had our first date years ago, where we'd celebrated anniversaries, where we'd built memories that felt significant once. "I'm not really in the mood for restaurants," I said. "We haven't gone out in weeks." "We haven't done a lot of things in weeks. Seems to be working perfectly for you." She looked at me like I'd physically slapped her across the face. Good. Maybe now she was starting to understand what the past month had felt like from my perspective. By the end of week 6, something had shifted entirely in our dynamic. She was now the one trying to start conversations. She was the one lingering in doorways, waiting for my attention and approval. She was the one who seemed genuinely confused by the distance she herself had created. I was completely comfortable on my side of it. Wednesday of week 7 brought the first piece of concrete evidence. I came home early from a client meeting, earlier than my usual schedule, earlier than she would have expected me. She was on the phone in the bedroom, and the door was cracked open just enough that her voice carried clearly into the hallway. "I miss you too," she was saying, her tone soft and intimate in a way it hadn't been with me in months. "I know, but it's complicated right now. Thursday works for me. Same place as last time. He won't notice anything. He's been distant anyway." She laughed at something the other person said, a laugh that was warm and genuine and intimate. I stood perfectly still in that hallway, listening. Then I walked away quietly, went to the kitchen, poured myself a drink, and sat down to think carefully. I wasn't angry. That was the surprising part. I was almost relieved. The pieces were finally clicking into their proper places. The rule about touching wasn't about her needing space from everyone in her life. It was about her specifically needing space from me. Space to do what exactly? The answer was becoming abundantly clear. 2 days later, her laptop was sitting open on the kitchen counter. I wasn't snooping, wasn't even trying to look. But Instagram was open, and a direct message preview was visible on the screen. Derek Martinez. The name triggered a memory in my mind. She'd mentioned him months ago, casually during dinner one night. An ex-boyfriend from college who'd just moved back to town after his divorce finalized. The message preview read, "Can't wait to see you again." I made a careful mental note, didn't touch her laptop or read further, didn't mention what I'd seen, just filed it away with the phone conversation and all the other small clues I'd been collecting without even realizing I was doing it. Saturday, she announced she was going to book club. She was dressed considerably nicer than usual, wearing a perfume I didn't recognize, and had never smelled on her before. Have fun at book club, I said, not looking up from my phone. I might be late. Late, she said, watching my face closely for a reaction. Okay. She lingered by the door like she was disappointed in my response, like she'd wanted me to object, to question her, to demonstrate that I cared. When I gave her absolutely nothing, she left with confusion written clearly across her face. After the door closed behind her, I opened her laptop. I knew the password. She'd never changed it from our anniversary date, which seemed almost ironic now. The book club group chat was easy to locate and even easier to read through. Their last actual meeting had been 2 weeks ago. The next scheduled meeting was for the following Thursday, not tonight. So book club was code for something else entirely. How literary of her. When she came home at 11 that night, I was already in bed, or pretending to be. She slipped into the room quietly, and I could smell it immediately. She smelled different, not like herself, like someone else's cologne mixed with her new perfume, like guilt and secrets and choices she'd made. I kept my breathing steady and even, let her believe I was asleep, let her think she was successfully getting away with it. The next morning, she told me that book club had run late, that the group had gone for drinks afterward. Sounds fun, I said neutrally. What book are you all reading? She froze for just a second, and I caught it. The one we picked last time. Which one was that again? You know, the mystery one. I nodded like I believed her completely, like I wasn't watching her scramble to remember a lie she should have prepared more carefully. Enjoy your book. By Friday of that week, I had accumulated enough pieces to complete the entire puzzle. The no-touch rule that started at right around the time Derek moved back to town. The constant phone usage, always face down, always protected and guarded. The fake book club meetings and the late nights. The new clothes, the new perfume, the new energy that was clearly coming from somewhere outside our marriage. She didn't want space from me for herself. She wanted freedom to be with someone else without technically breaking her marriage vows. After all, if we weren't touching anyway, did it really count as cheating when she touched someone else instead? That night, while she was in the shower, I researched divorce attorneys in our area. Not out of anger or revenge or spite, out of simple, practical necessity. This marriage was effectively over. She'd ended it the day she established her rule. I was just finally acknowledging reality. Monday morning of week 8, she cornered me in the kitchen before I could leave for work. We need to talk about whatever's been going on with you, she said, arms crossed defensively. What's been going on with me? You've been cold, distant, acting like we're complete strangers. The irony was so overwhelmingly thick I almost laughed out loud. That's fascinating. Tell me, when's the last time we actually touched each other? That's different. I explained why I needed that. Space from me, I said calmly. But not from everyone, right? Her expression shifted just slightly, but I caught it clearly. Panic, quick and sharp, before she covered it with confusion. How's Derek doing these days? I asked casually. Haven't heard you mention him in a while. Derek, my ex? I don't talk to him. I smiled, but there was no warmth in it whatsoever. Right, my mistake. I left her standing there and went to work, where I could at least pretend things were straightforward and honest. That evening, she tried a completely different approach. She sat close to me on the couch, touched my arm deliberately, acted like the past 6 weeks simply hadn't happened. I moved away immediately. I'm trying to be close to you, she said, genuine hurt evident in her voice. Now you are. How convenient. You're the one who's been distant lately. I'm following your rules exactly, I said calmly. Or did those rules only apply to me? She started crying then, real tears streaming down her face. A month ago, that would have absolutely broken me. Now I just stood up from the couch. I'm going to bed. I left her crying there and felt nothing except tired. Wednesday, she announced book club again. I was prepared this time. Do you? I asked. Do I what? Have book club tonight. Which book are you discussing? She hesitated noticeably. The one we picked last time. Book club met 2 weeks ago, I said, my voice perfectly even. The next meeting is scheduled for Thursday. I checked the group chat. The color drained from her face completely. How dare you check up on me like that? I didn't check up on you. I checked up on your story. They don't match. I don't have to explain myself to you. You're absolutely right. You don't. I returned to my book, and eventually she left anyway, storming out. She came home at midnight, reeking of cologne that definitely wasn't mine, and found me still awake sitting in the living room. "You waited up?" she asked, sounding almost hopeful. "I stayed up. There's a difference." She actually tried to kiss me then. Leaned in for a kiss like nothing was wrong, like we were normal, like she hadn't just spent hours with whoever she'd been with. I turned my head away. "You won't even kiss me now?" She sounded genuinely hurt. "Whose cologne is that?" Her hand went unconsciously to her shirt. "A friend hugged me goodbye." "Stop," I said firmly. "Just stop lying." The next morning, I found a receipt in the pocket of her jacket. She'd asked me to grab her phone from it, and the receipt fell out onto the floor. Dinner for two at an expensive restaurant downtown last Thursday. The supposed book club night. The total was $140. Wine, appetizers, 2 entrees, dessert to share. Not the kind of meal you have alone or with a group of book club friends. The kind of meal you have on a date with someone special. I took a photo of the receipt with my phone, put it back exactly where I'd found it, and handed her the phone she'd requested. "Thanks," she said, not meeting my eyes even for a second. "No problem at all." She had absolutely no idea that I knew. No idea that every single lie was being carefully cataloged, every piece of evidence methodically noted and saved. I wasn't building a case for some dramatic confrontation. I was building clarity for myself, understanding exactly what I was dealing with so I could make informed decisions. Friday brought what I can only describe as the performance of a lifetime. I came home from work to find candles lit throughout our entire apartment, soft music playing from the speakers, and Rachel wearing lingerie I'd never seen before in my life. "What's all this?" I asked, setting down my work bag. "I miss us," she said, moving toward me slowly. "I miss you so much." "Do you? Or do you miss having me as a reliable option?" "Don't be like that. I'm here right now, aren't I? I'm trying." She reached for me, tried to pull me close, and I deliberately stepped back. "No," I said simply. "Why won't you touch me?" She was crying again, but these were frustrated tears now. "Because those are your rules, remember? No touching unless you initiate it." "Oh, wait, you're initiating now. How interesting that your desire returned at the exact moment you realized I was done chasing you." I walked past her entire elaborate display, past the candles and music and desperate performance, and went straight to the bedroom. I heard her blow out the candles one by one behind me, each breath sounding like a small defeat. The next day, she tried anger as her strategy. "Fine," she shouted at me across the kitchen. "You want the truth? Derek and I have been talking. We met for coffee a few times. That's all it was." "Coffee at midnight? It's not what you think it is." I looked at her, really looked at her. "You know what? It doesn't actually matter what I think. You made your choice when you created that rule. You wanted to keep me at arm's length while you figured out if your ex-boyfriend was a better option than your husband. That's fine. That's your choice. But I've made my choice too." "What choice?" "Not to be your backup plan while you shop around." Sunday brought the reveal I'd been half expecting for days. She was in full breakdown mode, cycling rapidly through every possible emotion, trying desperately to find the one that would work on me. "I was testing you," she finally shouted in desperation, and I stopped what I was doing. "Testing me? I wanted to see if you'd fight for us, if you'd pursue me even when I pushed you away. You just gave up immediately." I let that statement sit in the silence between us for a long moment. Let it breathe and settle and reveal itself for exactly what it was. "Let me get this absolutely straight," I said slowly and deliberately. "You made a rule that I couldn't touch you. You spent 6 weeks actively avoiding me. You met up with your ex-boyfriend multiple times. You lied repeatedly about where you were going. And I was supposed to, what exactly? Beg harder? Chase you more? Break down your walls?" Relationships take effort from both people. "They take effort from both people," I agreed. "You stopped making any effort 2 months ago. You just wanted me to keep trying so you'd feel wanted while you went elsewhere to feel desired." I walked out then. I'd spent 31 days meticulously respecting her boundaries. Now she could spend the rest of her life respecting mine. Monday, I told her clearly that I thought we should separate. The word landed between us like a bomb detonating. "We can do counseling," she said desperately, grasping at anything. "Work on this together." "I don't want to work on this anymore. I want to work on myself." "Michael, please don't do this. I'm sorry this hurts you, but it hurt first when you pulled away from me. Tuesday afternoon, I left work early and drove around looking at studio apartments. I'd found several listings online and wanted to see them in person. I wanted to stand in spaces that could be exclusively mine, without the weight of someone else's disapproval hanging constantly in the air. The third place I viewed was absolutely perfect. Small, yes, but it was a corner unit with large windows overlooking the street below. Hardwood floors throughout, a compact kitchen, a bathroom with decent water pressure. Empty in all the ways that mattered right now, but completely full of possibility. "I'll take it," I told the landlord immediately. He seemed surprised by my quick decision. "Don't you want to think about it for a day or two? Talk to your wife?" "No," I said firmly. "I don't." I signed the lease right there in his office. First month's rent and security deposit paid by check. It felt like buying my freedom, 1 square foot at a time. When I got home that evening, Rachel was cooking dinner. She looked up when I walked in, appearing hopeful, like maybe my absence meant I'd been thinking about us, about fixing things between us. "Where were you?" she asked carefully. "Handling some business." She wanted to push further. I could see it clearly, but something in my expression stopped her cold. Maybe she was finally starting to understand that she'd lost the right to ask me questions. Over the next several days, I took additional practical steps, called a divorce attorney and scheduled a consultation, looked at furniture online for the new apartment, opened a separate bank account in only my name. Each action was methodical, clean, and final. She realized I was completely serious when she saw apartment listings still open on my laptop screen. "You're really leaving me?" Her voice was small, almost childlike. "I'm really leaving." The voicemails started then. Multiple messages per day, her voice cycling through every conceivable stage of grief. Apologetic, then angry, then bargaining, then desperate. I listened to the first few and then simply stopped. There was nothing left to say to each other. Thursday, she left a particularly long voicemail. I listened to it while running through the park, the entire city spread out before me like a map of new possibilities. "Michael, please call me back. I know I messed everything up. I was testing you, okay? I wanted to see if you'd fight for me, if you'd show me you cared enough. Derek and I, nothing actually happened between us. It was just coffee, just attention when I felt invisible. I created a stupid test and I know that now. But please, we can fix this if you'll just talk to me. I choose you. I've always chosen you. Please, just call me back." I stopped running and pulled out my phone. I typed out a text message that felt like the closing of a book. "You say you were testing me. Let me tell you what I learned from your test. 1. You wanted space, so I gave it to you. Test result. You didn't actually want space. You wanted drama. 2. You stopped touching me, so I stopped trying. Test result. You only wanted me when I stopped wanting you back. 3. You met with your ex and lied about it repeatedly. Test result. You don't respect me or our marriage. 4. You claim you were testing whether I'd fight for you. Test result. I refuse to fight for someone who won't show up for me. Congratulations on your test. You failed. I'm moving out next week. My attorney will contact you about separation paperwork." I sent it and immediately blocked her number. Saturday, I packed my belongings while she watched from various doorways throughout the apartment, hovering like a ghost in what used to be our home. When I was completely done, I carried the boxes down to my car in complete silence. She followed me to the apartment door on my final trip. "Please don't do this," she whispered, tears streaming down her face. "You did this 31 days ago when you decided I wasn't worth touching. I'm just finishing what you started." I took off my wedding ring and set it carefully on the kitchen counter. The gold caught the afternoon light one last time. Next to it, I placed my key to the apartment. Everything that truly mattered fit into 7 boxes and 2 suitcases. I'd been deliberate and thoughtful about what I packed. My books, my running gear, my coffee maker, the framed photograph of my parents, the blanket my grandmother had made before she died. Things that were mine before Rachel entered my life. Things that would remain mine after. What I left behind told its own story. The wedding album, sitting on a shelf collecting dust for months. The couple's cookbooks we'd bought together and never actually used. The artwork we'd chosen as compromises. All of it stayed behind, like artifacts from someone else's life entirely. I heard her collapse behind me as I walked out that door, but I didn't look back. Didn't let myself feel anything except the weight of boxes in my arms and the lightness of that ring no longer on my finger. The studio apartment was small, completely unfurnished, empty in every way that mattered. That first night, I slept on an air mattress with a single pillow and felt more genuine peace than I had experienced in months. No one's judgment hanging over me, no one's disappointment poisoning the air, just silence and possibility and the sound of my own breathing. The next morning, I woke up early and went for a run. A completely new route through a new neighborhood, past houses I'd never seen before, people I didn't know. When I got back, I made coffee in my own kitchen, sat on my own floor, and watched the sun come through my own windows. It was everything I needed and nothing I'd had before. Over the following weeks, I deliberately built a new life. Bought furniture piece by piece, each item chosen by me alone for my own preferences. A couch I actually liked, a bed that was genuinely comfortable, dishes that matched each other. The apartment slowly transformed into a real home, filled with my choices, my preferences, my way of existing in the world. I went to work, came home, cooked meals I wanted to eat, read books without interruption. Lived in a way that was almost aggressively normal. No drama, no manufactured crises, no emotional tests. Just the quiet routine of someone who'd chosen peace over chaos. For the first time in 2 months, I slept completely through the night. 3 months passed like pages turning in a book. I settled into my new place, established new routines, found rhythms that were exclusively mine. Morning runs through different neighborhoods, cooking meals that I actually wanted to eat, reading without constant interruption, living without the perpetual calculation of someone else's unpredictable needs. The legal separation was officially processed. Divorce papers were filed with the court. Everything moved forward with the cold efficiency that endings require. At a work event in December, a colleague I barely knew approached me at the refreshment table. "Hey, Michael, I don't mean to be weird or anything, but you seem genuinely different lately. Lighter somehow." I thought about that observation carefully. I guess I am. Well, whatever you're doing in your life, keep doing it. It really suits you. It did suit me. This version of myself who didn't apologize for taking up space, who didn't shrink himself to accommodate someone else's unreasonable demands. This Michael who knew his worth and flatly refused to negotiate it downward. Rachel kept trying to reach me through various methods. New phone numbers, emails to my work address, messages delivered through mutual friends, weekly at first, then monthly. Each one was a variation on the same basic theme. She was so sorry. She understood everything now. She'd changed completely. Could we please just talk? I never responded to any of them. There was nothing left to say to someone who'd tested my love by deliberately withdrawing hers. One morning in late January, I was sitting at a coffee shop with a book when my phone buzzed with a notification. A voicemail from yet another new number. I almost deleted it without listening, but something made me press play. "Michael, it's me. I know you won't call back, but I need to say this anyway." Her voice was different this time, calmer, sadder, more genuinely reflective than the desperate messages that came before. "I get it now. What I did wasn't a test of your love. It was sabotage of our relationship. I was scared of how good we were together, so I deliberately created distance between us. And then when you gave me exactly the distance I asked for, I panicked completely. I wanted you to prove you loved me by breaking down my walls and pursuing me anyway. But you respected my boundaries instead. And that was exactly what I needed, but not what I wanted in the moment. I watched steam rise from my coffee cup, listened to her words, felt nothing except a distant sort of pity for her. I realize now that I was setting you up to fail, not succeed. Because if you failed my test, I'd have a convenient excuse to explore something else, someone else. I'm so sorry for everything. I threw away the best thing in my life because I was too immature and afraid to recognize it. I hope someday you can forgive me for what I did. I hope I can eventually forgive myself. And I really hope, you find someone who knows your value from day one and never makes you question it for a second. You deserve so much better than what I gave you. Take care of yourself, Michael." The message ended. I sat there for a moment, then deleted it completely, blocked the new number, and felt the finality of it settle into my bones like profound relief. "Excuse me," the woman from the next table said, interrupting my thoughts. "Sorry to interrupt, but is that the new Murakami novel?" I looked up and saw her friendly smile, her genuine interest in literature. It is. Have you read it yet? Not yet. Is it good so far? Very good so far. We talked easily about books, about the neighborhood, about the coffee shop, and whether their pastries were actually worth the premium price. It was easy, natural, completely free of calculation or manipulative games. When she laughed at something I said, briefly touching my arm in a natural gesture, it didn't feel like a test or a trap. It felt like genuine human connection. Her name was Emma. She worked at an office nearby and came to this coffee shop most mornings before work. We exchanged phone numbers, made vague plans to meet for coffee again sometime soon, and parted with easy, comfortable smiles. I didn't know if anything romantic would come of this connection, but I knew something far more important. I wasn't afraid of connection anymore, wasn't afraid of rejection or vulnerability or offering affection that might not be returned immediately. Because I'd learned something genuinely valuable from those 31 days of being completely untouched by someone who claimed to love me. The right person won't make you earn their affection through tests and games. They'll give it freely and consistently, or they won't give it at all. Walking away from someone who deliberately withholds love isn't giving up on the relationship. It's choosing yourself and your own well-being. And sometimes that's the most loving thing you can possibly do. I finished my coffee, gathered my things, and walked out into the cold morning air. The sun was breaking through the clouds, casting light on puddles and making the wet streets shine like polished glass. Somewhere behind me was a version of myself who'd counted days and accepted crumbs and forgotten his own fundamental worth. Ahead of me was simply forward,